Lynch. Too far out even for him, with the man on the mark at about 65. He hoists it to a pretty good spot, and it's a goal. Lycett, first kick, first minute, gets a goal. What a start.
So yeah, I played my first game in Melbourne at Etihad. Got a call up around 19, and first kick, first goal in the first minute of the game. I remember Lynchy being about 60 metres out, trying to kick one from 60, but he pulled up short, went to the goal square and made a contest and got out the back and slammed it home.
And it's a goal! Lycett, first kick, first minute, gets a goal.
Josh Kennedy is in hospital with bleeding behind the eye. 10 goals against the Bulldogs last time, but he won't play them tomorrow after he was hit in the eye with a tennis ball.
JK's having probably the best season he's had, even including the last 2 years. Coxie's thrown a tennis ball at him and drilled him right in the eye.
Yeah, I was about to walk down into the warm-up room, and JK was coming out with his hand over his eye and had no idea what was going on, didn't know what had happened, but walked in there and Coxie was looking very sheepish. He'd pinged the ball down and JK obviously turned his head at the wrong time.
No, I think JK certainly picked the wrong battle before we got on the plane that day, and then eventually couldn't make the flight. Scotty come into his place, kicked his first goal, and that's what I'm about. Just give rucks more of an opportunity and just show that rucks can play forward and kick goals.
We talk about Josh Kennedy being out of the side, but they've replaced like for like in one sense with another big forward, and he competed really well. Look at the athleticism at ground level, and was able to rove his own contest. And there it is, first kick, first goal. Well done, Scotty Lycett, great effort.
So I was actually in hospital watching this at this point, and I wasn't allowed to get my blood pressure up because I was bleeding in the eye. So the nurse ran in after this first goal because I was getting too excited and told me to settle down, otherwise she's going to turn it off. And the game was actually good until the last 5 minutes, and it got too close and she actually turned it off. And as she walked out, I turned it back on and Coxie took that mark.
This is what footy is all about. That won't be a goal. Who can win this ball? Dean Cox can. Dean Cox can. And he's the man who will probably turn out the lights for the Western Bulldogs.
That was round 19, I remember that. It was it wasn't funny, it wasn't funny for JK, but I remember that game because I was watching it with JK in hospital. Good start for Scotty, but not the best circumstance.
What a fantastic finish it was in the end from Scotty Lycett, the big 200-centimetre boy from Sejuna, 800 kilometres northwest of Adelaide.
Scotty Lycett's first goal, soda in the goal square. What more can you say? Almost missed it as well, and I was there, probably should give it in hands too.
Well, any goal is not a soda, I don't think, in AFL, but, you know, first kick in the AFL, I'll take that for sure.
Terrific looking athlete he is, and a wonderful start for Lycett and for the West Coast Eagles.
Oh yeah, he was carrying on, and when he got back, he thought he was on top of the world. You know, kick a couple of goals back to back like that, anyone would be carrying on, so he got lucky with that one right there. Good goal though.
They've brought him in a moment of necessity, and already he has 2 goals.
From what I remember, I actually hit someone in the face with the ball. I think it was an older lady, and she was wearing glasses at the time and cut up her face quite bad, so I saw her after the game and she had bandages and cuts everywhere, and I quickly had to apologise. I think I sent her some flowers as well, so, but no regrets. I still keep the goal, so just sorry I hit her in the face.